wind carried a warning long before Thomas realized they were being watched, not by a person, but by the mountain itself. The ridge beneath him groaned, shifting like an ancient beast waking from sleep. Snow lifted in spirals, whispering past his ears like voices he couldn't place. His ice axe trembled in his gloves. Ahead, the path narrowed into a knife edge of white death. Behind him, the storm sealed their escape. He looked back at the three climbers who trusted him with their lives. The mountain had made its choice. Now, they would have to survive it. The Serrano Range didn't care about ambition or dreams. It didn't care about who you loved, what you'd lost, or why you climbed. It swallowed people the same way it swallowed sound, quietly, without emotion, without even remembering their names. Thomas Hale knew this better than anyone, yet here he was, leading a team onto one of its deadliest peaks, as if the past hadn't already claimed enough from him. Behind him, Mia adjusted her harness, her breath a sharp cloud in the freezing air. She was the smallest of the group, but no one on Earth had a steadier step on ice. She moved with a strange mix of grace and calculation, each kick of her crampons precise, controlled. She caught Thomas watching her and raised an eyebrow. What now? Another premonition? Not a premonition, a shift. And a shift in what? In the way the mountain feels. Mia exhaled slowly. Wonderful! A mountain with moods! The sarcasm didn't hide her unease. In the Serrano Range, instincts were often louder than facts. Jace was next on the rope, broad-shouldered, just over 30, always trying to hide the limp in his left leg from an avalanche accident 2 years before. He had a laugh that could thaw ice, but he hadn't used it once since they started climbing. He tugged the rope gently. If Tom says there's a shift...
Saved his entire body once, Mia corrected. Not just his ass. Thomas said nothing. He didn't like them treating him like some kind of oracle. His instincts came from something far uglier, trauma, memory, and a guilt he never quite managed to bury. At the end of the rope was Rowan, the rookie of the group, though he wasn't inexperienced, just young, only 25, hungry for achievement. His face was half frozen, his eyes wide with the same mix of fear and excitement Thomas remembered feeling at that age. "Should we turn around?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. Thomas looked at the sky instead of answering. A heavy wall of gray moved in from the west, thick as wet wool, swallowing the light inch by inch. Clouds rolled low over the peaks like restless spirits. The wind was rising again, not in violent bursts, but in the steady, deliberate way that it meant it was building towards something worse. Not yet, but we need to move fast. They pushed on, breathing in sharp, burning gasps. Their boots punched into the snow with dull thuds. The rope between them tugged and slackened in tiny rhythms. The mountain seemed to tilt beneath them, its angles deceptive, its surfaces unreliable. Ice cracked under Jace's boots once, sending a jolt along the rope, forcing everyone to freeze. "Hold," Thomas whispered. They held their breath, listened, waited. The crack didn't widen. Jace swallowed hard. "Not doing that again." Mia patted his shoulder. "Then stop putting your full weight on the universe's most suspicious ledges." Noted. Thomas felt the tension in the group like electricity. This climb wasn't supposed to be hell, not this early. The peak they were aiming for, Mount Celestine, was feared, yes, but predictable. Its storms usually came with warning. Its avalanches spoke first with low groans. But today everything felt wrong, like a script rewritten by something unseen. The slope steepened. They moved into an area known as the Crosswind Corridor, a narrow stretch where winds slammed through a gap between ridges like water forced through a pipe. Visibility dropped to a pale blur. Snow fell sideways. The rope swayed like a live wire. "Get low!" Thomas shouted over the roar. They crouched, leaning their weight into the slope. Jace cursed as the wind nearly tore his hood off. Rowan's glasses fogged so badly he ripped them away, blinking blindly into the storm. "Stay on the rope," Mia warned. "If you slip, you're taking us with you." Rowan nodded, his jaw clenched, knuckles white around his axe. They pushed forward, inch by inch, fighting the wind as it tried to scrape them off the mountain like dust. Every breath felt like inhaling razors. Thomas couldn't see more than a meter ahead. And then, suddenly, the wind died. Just stopped. The silence hit them like a blow. It wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that meant something was watching. "Why did it stop?" Rowan whispered. Jace's voice was low. "Storms don't pause." "No," Thomas said softly. "Not unless something's about to—" His words fell away. A deep boom rolled beneath them. The snow vibrated. Mia's eyes widened. "Avalanche?" Thomas listened. The vibration increased, slow, heavy, like footsteps of something enormous moving under the skin of the mountain. "Not yet," he said, tightening his grip on the axe. "But something's shifting in the basin above us. We need to cross this section before it—" The mountain growled, a low, monstrous rumble. He didn't finish. "Move!" They surged forward, hearts hammering, slipping, scrambling over the slope as the snow behind them began to slide, not fast at first, but fast enough to send up plumes of white dust that stung their eyes. Rowan stumbled. Mia grabbed him. Jace powered forward through the deepening snow, dragging Rowan upright as the rope jerked. Thomas led them around a narrow bend, snow pounding against his legs, breath tearing through his chest. The avalanche didn't fully release, but it threatened, it growled. The sound felt like warning shots from a hunter. When they reached a small outcropping sheltered by an angled slab of rock, they collapsed there, panting. Jace slumped against the rock. "That was awful." Mia leaned her head back, eyes closed. "I'd like to unsubscribe from whatever the hell that was." Rowan's voice shook. "Are we going to die up here?" "No," Thomas said more firmly than he felt. "Not if we keep moving." But his eyes returned again and again to the slope above them. Something out there was building. They waited for the vibration to fade. After 20 minutes, the storm thinned enough to move. As they continued up the slope, Thomas noticed the rope tension had changed. It felt heavier, like something was dragging on it. He stopped and checked it. Everything physically seemed fine. Then why did it feel like someone else was pulling? He shook the thought off. Altitude messes with your mind, makes ghosts out of shadows. Yet the feeling grew. When they reached an open plateau, a flat space before the final ascent, the visibility cleared just long enough for the sun to break through the clouds. The world turned silver. Jagged peaks pierced the horizon. Far below, the valley looked like a dream. Mia took a shaky breath. "Beautiful." Rowan nodded, awe softening his fear. "Worth it." Jace smiled weakly. "Almost makes me forget the mountain tried to murder us." Thomas forced himself to appreciate the moment. Beauty mattered. It reminded you why you climbed. But something in the sunlight felt wrong. Shadows didn't match their shapes. The wind came from two directions at once. Snow swirled without pattern. And then it hit him. This was the same place. The same plateau where 3 years ago— No, he shoved the memory away. Not now. Not here. "Tom?" Mia's voice pulled him back. Are you okay? No, he said honestly. But we keep moving anyway. They roped up again and approached the next ridge. That was when the mountain decided. It started with a crack, not loud, not dramatic, just a single sharp pop like a twig snapping under ice. Thomas froze. Everyone, don't move. Mia got still. Jace's breath hitched. Rowan's hands trembled. The crack spread beneath the snow, invisible but audible, like a zipper being pulled open inside the ridge. Then the ground tilted. Thomas slammed his axe down. Self-arrest! Now! The snow beneath them broke loose, not a full avalanche, but a slab slide. A sheet of snow detached from the mountain and began to move downward like a slow, deadly wave. Jace anchored himself. Rowan screamed as the snow pulled him forward. Mia held the rope tight, planting her axe with impossible strength. Thomas dug in, every muscle screaming. For a few seconds it seemed they would hold.
Then the ridge buckled again. The slab accelerated, and the rope snapped. One sudden, brutal sound. A muffled twang drowned by the wind. Rowan fell first, jerked backward as the broken rope lashed across his chest. He slid down the slope, arms flailing, boots scraping uselessly. He screamed Thomas's name until the sound dissolved into distance. Jace lost balance next, tumbling sideways as the slab carried him. His body vanished in snow and swirling white. Mia held the last rope section, staring in horror, tears freezing on her lashes. Thomas felt everything slow, his heartbeat, the wind, even time. Not again. Not again. Not another team. Not another failure. He grabbed the remaining rope with both hands and leaned into the void, shouting, "Jace! Rowan! Answer me!" Nothing. Only the storm. Only the mountain. Mia's voice cracked as she whispered, "Tom, they're gone." Thomas closed his eyes. But he didn't believe that. Not yet. Not until the mountain stopped deciding. The silence after the rope snapped was so complete it felt like a physical blow. Thomas stood frozen, staring into the storm-fogged void where Jace and Rowan had vanished. The wind gusted across the ridge, sending snow swirling around him in restless spirals, like the mountain was wiping away all evidence of what it had just taken. Mia remained beside him, her fingers still wrapped around the useless end of the rope, knuckles white, breaths sharp and uneven. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She only stared downward, eyes wide, as if trying to unsee the moment the mountain claimed half their team. Thomas forced himself to breathe. His chest felt tight, not from altitude, but from something deeper, an ache that lived in memory. 3 years ago, he had stood on another ridge, another storm, another instant where the ground buckled and the rope snapped. He had watched his partner fall. That moment had carved a permanent scar into him, a sound he'd never forgotten. And now, it had happened again. Not this time. Not again. Not if he could still move. "Mia," Thomas said, his voice barely steady. "We're going down." She blinked slowly. "Tom, they fell. We saw them fall. We didn't see where they landed." "That doesn't matter." "It does," he said sharply, "because they were roped in. The slab might have carried them to a shelf, a pocket, a soft drift, something." Mia's lips trembled. "Or it carried them into the basin, or the crevasse field, or—" "We don't assume they're dead," Thomas said, gripping her shoulder. "We assume they're hearing us, that they're waiting." Her eyes glistened. She nodded. Thomas took the remaining rope, checked the carabiners, tightened his harness, and scanned the slope. The slab avalanche had carved a smooth swath down the ridge, a slick chute leading into the basin far below.
The visibility cleared for a moment, revealing the faint outline of jagged rocks and steep drop-offs. The slide path was deadly, but survivable. Maybe. He tested the anchor with his full weight. "I'm going down first." Mia grabbed his jacket. "What if the rest of the slope goes?" "That's why I'm going." The wind howled suddenly, whipping the rope against the ice. Thomas locked eyes with Mia. "Listen to me. If anything happens, if the mountain shifts again, you get off this ridge. You descend to the plateau. You wait for me there. Understand?" "No," she said. "Understand," he repeated firmer. "Fine. But that's only if one thing happens." "What?" "If you don't come back in 1 hour, I'm coming after you." Thomas wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. He clipped in, planted his axe, and began lowering himself down the slide path. His boots scraped the ice. The wind roared like a creature. Snow cascaded over him in waves, cold needles against his face. He moved slowly, searching every indentation, every shadow, looking for movement, broken rope, any sign of life. The mountain groaned again, not a tremor, just a long, deep breath. He halted instantly. His heart thud in his ears. The air felt electric, heavy, tense. Then it passed. He continued downward, inch by inch. 20 meters down, he saw it. A dark object, half buried in snow. His heart leapt. "Jace!" he shouted. The figure didn't move. He quickened his descent, boots slipping on the slick snow. When he reached the body, he dropped to his knees. It was Jace's pack. Empty. His stomach sank. He scanned the slope desperately. Then he saw something else. Tracks. Faint, dragging marks leading toward the right, toward a narrow ledge. "Jace!" Thomas yelled again, hope flaring despite the cold dread. A weak voice answered. "Tom!" Thomas nearly collapsed from relief. He followed the marks, climbing sideways along the unstable slope. Near a small overhang of rock, partially shielded from the wind, Jace lay curled on his side, half buried in snow, blood on his forehead, breathing shallow but alive. Thomas knelt beside him. "I've got you." Jace blinked up, vision glassy. "I thought I was done." "You're not done," Thomas said, voice shaking. "Not today." He brushed snow away from Jace's face, checked his pupils, then carefully inspected his leg. Nothing broken. His left arm was dislocated, but that could be fixed. The problem was blood loss. Jace's head wound was deep. "You're going to be okay," Thomas said softly. Jace exhaled a weak laugh. "You always say that, and I'm always right." Thomas squeezed his shoulder. He cleaned the wound as best he could, secured it with a compression band, and pulled Jace into a semi-seated position. "Where's Rowan?" Thomas asked. Jace's expression darkened. "The slab pulled him farther, deeper. I saw him for a second before I hit the shelf. He was sliding toward the gorge." Thomas felt cold spread through his chest. The gorge was a maze of crevasses. If Rowan had fallen into one... Not yet. Not until he saw proof. He clipped Jace into the rope and slowly hauled him upward. Every movement was brutal. Jace groaned through clenched teeth. Snow shifted under them repeatedly. The wind breathed, restless. When they neared the ridge, Mia appeared above them, kneeling, reaching. Relief washed across her face. "Jace!" Thomas pushed, Mia pulled, and together they dragged him onto solid rock. She wrapped her arms around Jace tightly. "You idiot," she whispered. Jace cuckolded weakly. "Missed you too." Thomas felt exhaustion crash over him, but there was no time. "We have to find Rowan." Jace looked at him, fear flickering. "Tom, the gorge." "I know. But he might not be in it. He might be on a shelf just like you. If he's conscious, he might be shouting. And if he's unconscious, he doesn't have long." Jace nodded slowly. "Then go." Thomas began to stand, but Mia grabbed his arm. "Not without me." "Mia!" "No." I'm not staying behind. Not again. Something in her voice made Thomas hesitate. He remembered the night she had told him about her brother. Another mountain, another storm, another moment where she stayed behind and he didn't come back. She lived with that guilt every day.
He nodded. Okay, but we go carefully. They secured Jace in a sheltered corner near the ridge outcropping, gave him extra layers, and left him with the first aid kit. Try not to die, Mia said. Jace smirked. Only if you don't. Thomas and Mia roped together again and moved down the opposite side of the slide path. The gorge stretched below them like a jagged mouth of ice. The drop was terrifying, narrow crevasses crisscrossing like cracks in shattered glass. Thomas cupped his hands around his mouth. "Rowan!" Silence. Wind. Snow. Then, faintly, a sound. Thomas froze. Mia held her breath. Again, a weak cry, distant, echoing. "Help!" "Rowan!" Mia whispered. They followed the sound, climbing carefully along a thin ledge that hugged the side of a massive rock wall. Twice the snow shifted beneath them. Once the rope tensed suddenly as Mia slipped, but Thomas braced and she caught herself. At last they reached a narrow opening, a slit in the ice. Thomas knelt and peered inside. Rowan was there, alive. Wedged between two walls of ice about 5 meters down, his leg bent awkwardly, his face blue with cold but conscious. "Tom, I'm here," he whispered, tears freezing on his skin. Thomas exhaled. "You did good, kid. You held on." Mia knelt beside Thomas, her eyes softening. "We're getting you out." Rowan's body shook. I can't feel my leg." "Doesn't matter," Thomas said. "You're going home with us." He hammered an anchor into the ice. Mia prepared the harness. They lowered the rescue rope, guiding it around Rowan's shoulders. He tried to help, but he was nearly frozen. "Okay," Thomas said, "on my count." Together, they pulled. Rowan screamed but kept hold of the rope. Inch by agonizing inch, he rose from the crevice. Snow fell around him. The mountain groaned again. Thomas felt the ledge shifting beneath them. "Hurry," Mia said, voice tight. Thomas pulled harder, muscles burning, breath ragged, vision swimming. At last, Rowan's hands broke the edge. Mia grabbed him, dragging him onto the ledge. Thomas collapsed beside them, chest heaving. Rowan began to sob, half pain, half relief. Mia held him gently. "You're okay, you're okay." But they weren't safe yet. The sky above them darkened. The temperature dropped sharply, too sharply. A storm was coming back with vengeance. "Tom," Mia said quietly, "we need to move now." He nodded. "Help me lift him." They hoisted Rowan between them and began the slow climb back toward Jace. The wind roared louder, snow fell harder. The mountain's mood shifted violently, no longer warning, now punishing. Halfway up, the ridge trembled again. Thomas felt the vibration in his bones. "No, not now." The wind screamed, snow blasted sideways, the slope beneath them began to move, only a few centimeters, but enough to send terror through them. "We're not going to make it," Rowan cried, panicked. "Yes, we are," Thomas said. "Lean into me. Mia, anchor." Mia slammed her axe into the ice, rope trembling as Rowan's weight shifted. Thomas climbed, dragging Rowan, each breath tearing through his lungs. Snow smothered them, blinded them, choked them. Then a voice cut through the storm. "Over here!" Jace! He was standing, barely, at the top of the ridge. Hope exploded through Thomas. "Pull him!" Thomas shouted. Jace leaned in, gripping the rope with one arm, teeth clenched against the pain in his dislocated shoulder. Mia pushed from below. Thomas lifted Rowan higher. The ledge cracked one more time. But they made it. All three collapsed at the top as the wind roared past them. The storm howled, the mountains screamed, the world narrowed to cold and pain and breath. But they were alive. Thomas gathered Jason Rowan close, Mia leaning against him. He stared at the mountain, furious, monstrous, magnificent. "You don't get to decide today," he whispered. The descent took hours, too many hours, but they survived every gust, every shift, every creaking slab. When they finally reached the plateau, the storm broke suddenly, sunlight piercing the clouds in golden beams. Rowan wept, Jace laughed until he cried. Mia pressed her face into Thomas's shoulder, shaking with relief. Thomas looked back one last time. The mountain towered above them, quiet now, still, watching. Maybe it knew it had lost. Maybe it was simply waiting. Either way, Thomas understood something. Mountains don't hate. They don't hunt. They don't forgive. But sometimes, when humans refuse to break, when they bleed and fight and crawl and keep moving anyway, the mountain lets them leave. Not because they deserve it, but because they endured it. He put an arm around his team. "Let's go home," he said. And for the first time in years, he felt lighter. The mountain had decided. And they survived.